Benvenido, everybody. Mac on the malt, y'all. Figured with the news cycle that's currently going around, the one that's going around with the shooters, I'd like to offer my personal opinion, viewpoint, and life experience. It's come to my attention that I haven't exactly explained and told much about myself. So I think it's necessary that I, give a bit of some background. Help you familiarize with myself and how I see the world. I think it might help, especially when we get into this topic. Because now we're at the point where we have experienced, the 17th shooting in general memory of terrorism done by any extremist group. The news is reporting that it's a left-wing and a right-wing extremist this time, but I'm not so sure. I don't feel that's the truth. I feel it might be that it's two left-wing extremists, but one is just very, very good at, using the trappings of one tribe against the other. But, I understand how there are some people in the audience and crowd who might be a little bit confused and might not understand how or why or what it is that I do here on my channel and what I choose to do on my Twitter feed. Recently got into another scrapuru with the communists and two upset feminists. That's for another video, but I want to go over the details of this particular thing because it's an interesting breakdown of some nonsense. The shootings that happened, El Paso and what was it, the Garlic Festival? I don't even know where it was that it happened. But the Garlic Festival, where there was a smaller loss of life and the shooter was killed on the scene, and the El Paso one, where there was unfortunately a large loss of life and the shooter was taken into custody, there is a very obvious trend that's being seen. We have a major being weaponized in general with these people. And the problem, very clearly, when we get down to brass fucking tacks, is that it's been pathologized into a specific group, a specific kind of outlook, a specific kind of person whom people are focusing their intentions, outrage, and upset aggregation at. To the point that it's becoming obvious that these things are not things they care about. They only care about it when it's their side. We've seen it. I've seen it. You've seen it. The news will cover something plastered, wall-to-wall caterwauling. White supremacist commits act of terrorism. Why won't the president condemn this? Person of the other side does it. Crickets. They are actually gonna try to attempt to blame this on Trump and white supremacy. It is weird, to say the least. And it's weird because it doesn't make sense. Not at all. Not even a little. Let's go over a couple screenshots. Let's go over a couple of the details of information that I've gathered. Try to piece this shit together bit by bit. And then I give you my ideas on what it is that I think is going on here. There we go. So, on screen. For you right here. Wait, other one. For you right here. We have the two people in question. The Garlic Festival shooter and the El Paso shooter. People have been making posts about this where they are noticing that they look like they are the exact same type of person. And there is some credence to this. And I'll get into it on why I think. But the coverage of this goes down, and it was discovered that in the case of the Dayton shooter, put it this way, the Dayton shooter, uh, Connor Betts, was a person who identified themselves down these particular lines, you could say. A particular kind of interest, a particular kind of outlook, a particular kind of pathology of things that they went through, of ways that they identified themselves. A follower of Mike Chuck Berry, a follower of, I'm assuming when they say Pope Hat, they mean the one and the only Pope Hat, which would be Joff View, Mother's Basement. But looking at these pictures, you can see very clearly that we're dealing with a particular kind of breed, right? A particular kind of person. And this is strange because I've seen, and I'll put it on screen as well to make sure that you understand what I'm talking about is in fact real. Here, right here, on screen with the El Paso shooting, that we have figures such as Rod Breslau and another AOC attempting to blame the problem on white supremacy and claiming that Trump did this all, blase blase. Rob Blasrow going the route of attempting them to just, come out and say that it's this. I don't agree with this. I condemn this. I don't like it. Because it's very clearly they're playing an angle. The amount of shootings that we've had, I believe we've had 17 in total. We've had 17 listing down and out since the start of this year, and tracking the ones from last year and the years before that and years before that and years before that. The shit has gotten to a point where people are forgetting. They're forgetting because they happen and they don't hear about them. You have the woman who went and attacked the YouTube headquarters. That was a thing that happened, right? Then you have the Las Vegas strip shooter. People already forgotten him into deep memory, especially concerning all the information and all the details around that. That's gone down the memory hole. Pulse nightclub, distant memory. The nail bombing at the Ariana Grande concert in Manchester in Britain, down the memory hole too. They don't remember. They don't remember. They can't remember. And they don't want to remember. Because it's easier. It's just easier. It's easier for them to forget and play the angle and just say, well, very clearly, y'all, you just don't want to deal with things. You don't want to actually work down on it. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's horrible. But get down to the brass tacks of it. Pulse nightclub, Dallas, Cesar Soyak, VA Tech, Annapolis, WDJB, the YouTube shooter, the Christchurch shooter in New Zealand, the Truck of Peace that happened in New York City, Boston. It's horrible. But the problem does not begin anywhere near the politics, right? You have one side attempting to say that it's mental illness and that it's because things that people don't want to talk about. And that's partially true. And then you have other sides that are saying, no, it's the guns, and we need to get rid of the guns. And they both going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, like stretching pizza dough. And they never stop. It's not as simple as that. It's a much deeper issue. And that's what I wanted to talk about. Because I talked about this when I made my Desmond Amalfa Atika memorial thread, when I wrote my open letter to Holly Conrad. It's nothing to do with any of those things. These guys, they have an identity crisis that they're going through. They have an identity crisis that they're going through because they're not capable of expressing themselves. They don't have things that in their life that they're able to go to it. They don't have male figures that they're able to speak to. They don't have people who they can trust in and confide in. They don't have any of those things. It doesn't exist. They don't have them because it's being taken from them on a regular basis. They try to go down and do things that they want to do in their personal interest, and no, they can't do it because their hobby's been taken over by something. Or they have no interest in doing it because when they try to go do it, they're not allowed to do it. And when they're not allowed to do it, they get held back, they get frustrated, they get upset. I understand this mindset. I used to have this mindset. Let me go back, way back, when I was just a wee lad. I had just graduated from private school because my mother was trying to shelter me, my family being extreme left, to the point where I have days where I can hear them through the fucking thin walls ranting about politics to my cousins and my distant family. When I first got to high school, I reconnected to all the people I'd known in the elementary school system because I hadn't finished it out when I left California and came here. My father, had gone on his way to do everything possible to destroy my family in the worst ways possible. Bring this shit right up to me. Make sure I go right there. He did everything in his power to make it easier to try and destroy the family household. So, I knew who my father was, but he didn't give a shit about me. So I didn't really give a shit about him. And when I got into high school, I wasn't even allowed to have the choices in the degree and the career I wanted to have. I went out and I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to do electrical engineering. I wanted to do construction. Because that's the money that pays here in Columbus, where I live. The place where I am. Probably shouldn't have said that. It doesn't fucking matter. If weird people try to come into the place where I live, that's one thing. But they're not going to be able to figure out where I live because I don't live in the same place anymore. But when we first got there and we moved into the new house and I went through the shit with all the stuff that I dealt with, my mother had taken me out of the school system because I was developing a resentment to authority. There are people going out of their way to harass people in the school system. Bullies exist. Always have, always will. But the problem was that the people that were supposed to do their job were lazy in the school district which I attended, which would be the Muskogee County School District. They are very, very fucking lazy. I talked about this on the threads that Mark Kern made when we were talking about the historic, it's not technically not even historic, the continuous and ongoing harassment of people who consider themselves geeks, weirdos, nerds, and gamers in their hobbies and spaces. These people wanted to single me out and isolate me because I was this weeb who could speak Japanese fluently, who had learned how to read a manga from the right way round, and had all of this stuff brought overseas by his father, who was trying to buy his affections so that he wouldn't have to choose between people's insides he could have on his side in the incoming divorce. See, I didn't like the fact that I had these things. We weren't rich. It wasn't paradise, but it was my life and it was my home. And these people wanted to take that shit from me. So when the development issues started happening, it was actually bullying. Didn't speak up about it. The shit got worse. Started terrifying my mother, so she tried to pull me out of the system. Fights started happening. Regular occasions where it went on a general basis. Eventually I had to go to private school. I didn't want to go to private school. She chose and forced me to go because she was terrified for my safety. Boy, that was a fucking mistake. It was worse in there than it was in public school. Because at least in public school, you have normal people you can hang around. Private school, you're stuck with these fucking freaks. People I ended up going to private school with were degenerates, in the greatest sense of the fucking word. Like, every single day, these kids was fucking. They was fucking each other anywhere where there were no people supervising them. They were fucking when they changed out for gym. They were fucking when they had to go do things for events, like going to other schools to compete in basketball. They were fucking during rehearsals and setups and in between transitions for performances because it was a show choir kind of school. You had to attend things. You had to perform and do shit. Well, bullshit and nonsense to me, honestly. The kind of things that you would do in a private school that was inherently Christian, which used to be this thing called Models, Actors, and Talent for Christ, which I believe has shut down now. But ancient fucking history. So, fast forward through all this shit. Get towards the start of it. Shit starts up again. I've had so many fucking objects thrown at my fucking head in my lifetime, but I don't think I've recalled having as many thrown objects at me in public school as I had in private school. Basketballs, footballs, softballs, baseballs, pitched out at me and thrown at my fucking skull, colliding at it by these people who thought it was funny to do this shit. So on the inside, I started to become very upset, very resentful, very outraged. It came to a head when I got into high school. It became a commonality that all the people who used to know me from when I was in the middle school for that 1 year I was actually attending before I was pulled out, who I was, who I am, what I was known for, what I was doing. First fucking freshman year, I get attacked by two guys whose names are now forever etched in my goddamn memory. Because these guys attempt to jump me to send me a message, to send a message through me to my brother, who would be graduating that year that I got into the school. Same time where I got my schedule, where essentially my parent decided that they were going to try to decide my future for me, to try and live vicariously through me. Long story short, to the end of it, they both went away to juvie, and one of them eventually came back and was able to finish his high school career, went on, changed his life, became a different person, but they had maimed me, and I lost my eyesight, my left eye. I was blind for 3.5 years of my high school career, and you bet your fucking ass I was fucking ridiculed for it. Up and down the fucking hallways. No matter what I did. I couldn't escape it. People were dicks. Because we were people. Got to a point that it was inevitable that I come to a breaking point. So when the bullying started here, I snapped. Completely snapped. Started creating warlike fights, sprawling through hallways and buildings. Because very clearly, they weren't going to answer the replies, and they weren't going to answer any of the forms and reports being made by faculty and staff that were either loyal to my parent, because she was the nurse at the school at the time, or were loyal to me, because they wanted to make sure that I was able to make it out of fucking high school alive, did all the fucking gang violence. They did everything possible to try and solve the problem, but it didn't solve the problem. Being bullied was one thing, but constantly being assaulted by people who wanted to see me in the goddamn dirt did something to me that just broke me on the inside. I looked out at the world because working at the age of 12, you start your workday as a federal worker early. You know, you rise at the fucking time of dawn, you get dressed, you hit the office at 6 o'clock a.m., you do your work. School starts around, what was it? When did it start? Like 7. School doors open at 6:30. You can get into the building, organize yourself, go through, get your fucking early lunch, and then school would be in session by at least 11. So my day would consist of getting up at 4:30, being taken down to the labor department to where I would go through my training before I would eventually be assigned to my other posts, doing a little bit of work, doing a little bit of filing, doing some counseling sessions with people who my job was to get them jobs, get them really good paying jobs. Do that, clock out for that appended period of time, go out, do the thing, go to school, come back, finish a proper work day, and then do that again for 3.5 years before I eventually then took a 4-year gig out of college because of my singing, which eventually brought me to choral and choir, and then eventually voice acting for some side projects, and then being a section leader for the tenors at Epcot for 4 years, the Magical Kingdom Epcot at the Disney parks for 4 years before I came back with that money, bought the house away from my father, obtained the quitclaim deed, was able to set forward and make a new path in my life, which eventually, yada yada, a couple of years away, all the way up to now, brings us here. It's the reason why I chose the thumbnail for this video to be the same as the same one I did for the video that started this series of, I guess you could call them vlogs and independent journalism reports. Because the same anger and resentment that I had is the same anger and resentment that these guys have. These guys, much like Columbine or Virginia Tech or any of the things going on right now when it comes to people committing acts of horrendous violence for attention, is because they felt rejected and alone. They look out at the world, right? They get up in the morning, look at the world, they look up at the stars, and they look at the future. They take assessment of their life. They have no prospects, they have no friends, little to no friends. They barely have any family to speak of. Some of them don't know or speak to their fathers. They don't really have a household that allows them to build on those connections. They resent their parents, most especially their mothers, who have probably beaten down and lectured them throughout all their lives. Because of the fact that they have no father figures and no parental figures to really speak of, their issues become internalized. They turn their anger inwards, not just at the world, but also at themselves. They hate their identity because they're living in current year, where identity is a weapon. And they don't have a weapon to use because a lot of these guys, if you want to believe the narrative, if you give credence to it, and you at least say, well, even if there are people who are minorities, well, you have a very large amount of them who tend to be white. Well, it's not because they're white supremacists. It's that some of them might be. They might legitimately have those beliefs. They might not. But at the end of the day, the wide spectrum of the people who you're assessing as this statistic, as this nebulous demographic that you're painting these lies about, they're not. A majority of them are not white supremacist. They're not anything other than just guys. Guys and girls. Because the girls get in on it too. YouTube shooter was a girl. She was a minority. Did the shit because she was being ignored and felt it was a personal attack when YouTube demonetized her channel. Went out, took down, went to the fucking offices, popped off the shots, and lost her life. There's memes about it. This shit happened because they feel rejected by greater society. It's not because Jordan Peterson once said you should probably clean your room and get your life in order that they chose to go do this shit. Because that's probably the first time, if ever, that they probably had somebody to look up to. Now, I'm not saying you should look up to him. That's not at all what I'm going at. What I'm saying is, and my point is, this shit, the violence, the actions, if I just look at it just through myself. Because when I wrote the Atika thread, I wrote it from the position of understanding how I felt. Because I identify with what happened to Desmond. Because Desmond is basically me. Same style, same energy, same everything. I see myself in him. And in his tragedy, I see mirror images of my own pain. Early on, it was not very easy until I was able to earn the money to get the money to pay for the surgery to regain my eyesight. that I could actually feel comfortable in my skin. A little bit of deep lore, that's actually where the handle Mr. Random comes from. Well, I looked in the mirror, and every single day I looked at myself with one fucking eye. I didn't feel human. I didn't feel like myself. That thing staring back at me in the mirror, with all this pain and rage, that wasn't me. I was a happy-go-lucky person. I loved people. I loved to talk to them. What happened to me could have happened to anyone, and does happen to everyone, eventually at some point. As it does happen to these guys. And at the end of the day, they don't have those resources, because those resources are being taken away from them. They can't go out and find someone to talk to. Who are they going to talk to? The feminists who own all the organizations are leads and heads of them, telling them that they don't deserve to have a voice, they can't be heard until they receive parity for their problems, that they're clearly taking care of their problems when they're clearly ignoring them and using them as a propaganda tool? No. Yeah, what are they going to go to and turn to? The support groups and hobbies? Those same hobbies taken over by those same exact people? Huh, yeah, good fucking luck. What about on the internet? Possibly, maybe. It's kind of what 4chan is now. It's a place where people go and hang out, attempt to have a personality of some sort, if even a stereotypical one. 4chan, Reddit, Reset Era, NeoGAF, Kiwi Farms. All these places exist for the purpose of finding camaraderie of some kind. And at the end of the day, even if they find said camaraderie, and they have said camaraderie, they try to deal with their problems, work out exactly what their issue is, what it brings them to have these opinions and have this viewpoint and have this outlook on the world. They're still going to look out on the world like someone like Elliot Rodger, and they're going to say, no, it's not me who needs to change, it's the world who needs to change. And here's how I'm going to do it. They're going to look at themselves in the mirror and they're going to say, I'm destined for greatness. It's my time to shine. Because that's what it goes back to. Especially when you look back on what just happened with my account, with not just the angry feminists being mad that I told them maybe you should stop obsessing over someone's dating life, but more important, the communists that came before them. When I called out the Talcum-esque post made by everyone's favorite race baiter, Sean King, he actually made the adage of don't give violent terrorists and don't give mass murderers the attention and fame that they're seeking racist. Because he chose to make it a racial thing. He chose to say, no, well, I'm very suspicious of white people when they say that because they're all too ready and prepared to plaster the faces of black people all across dimensions. Let me show you that post, actually. Let me show you that shit so you know that it's real. Let me show you that shit so that you know that it's real. Because when I saw this, I didn't believe it was real. I thought it was a fake. I thought it was a fake post. I thought someone was lying to me. I thought it was something that couldn't at all have existed whatsoever. But no, it does. It did. Here we go. Right here. This post. He says, I am highly suspicious of white people saying don't name the shooter or show his face after 100 years of you naming and showing every black face and mugshot in the papers and on the news that had ever made a single mistake. This shooter wasn't anonymous. He must be named and shown. And then listed across this on those same threads was the race realists that exist in his audience, showing clearly we know, we all know this shit. This is the shit that created this divide. This is the shit that created this nonsense. This is the sensationalism that it's come to in current year. And I hate it. I hate it. Because this is the reason why they go out and commit these actions. You demonize an entire demographic of humanity. You tell them that they're a monster. You isolate them from society. You tell them that they're not welcome in society. You remove their ability to have an opinion. You remove their ability to have a voice. You remove their ability to even be seen. And then you paint them as the devil. You use them as the boogeyman every time it comes up in conversation. And you never stop fucking doing it. Because you know it's financially lucrative and it's politically expedient to do so. Because fear! It's the worst kind of shit you could ever hope. And I would hope that we'd learn and we'd be better than this. But human's gonna human. Can't really blame them. And I don't accept, I abhor, and I disavow the actions of these people. All of them. Every single fucking one of them. The Christchurch shooter, the Garlic shooter, the El Paso shooter, Dylan Roof, the rest of them. I denounce all of it. Yet I understand. That's the fucked up part. I understand. I understand what would bring them to do this. Because when you look out on the world and you don't have any prospects, you can't even recognize yourself when you wake up in the morning, and you are so disillusioned with everything that you feel that you have nothing left. What else is there to do than to look out at the world and say, well, if they're not going to remember me, and they're not going to worship me, and if they're not going to listen to me, and they're just going to tell me that I'm evil, well, then let me be evil. It's very simple when you get down to brass tacks. It's going to happen every time because they know that they can go get the fame and the glory and the attention and the adoration and the admiration, the love and the attraction of the spotlight for their 15 minutes if they just go do this thing. No one else is listening to them to begin with. It's a bit like Bane. Nobody cared who they were before they put the mask on. Nobody cared who they were before they killed a bunch of people. But their name will go down in infamy. Oh no, they will be remembered. Whether or not they're remembered and admired for their actions is not the care or concern. They're not concerned with what's going to happen after they're gone. They're not concerned with the consequences of what they do. They want that quick fix. They want that attention that they've been denied all their lives. Probably for most of them, ever since they were children. And that's not even saying that some of them have to be broken. Because you don't break... A person does not go out to do these things and claim that they're broken just because someone said that they were. Some of these guys are functional and they're well aware of what they're doing. Especially the ones who are women and they go out and do this. They know what they were doing. They had a goal. They set a goal. They went out. They planned it. They executed it. And they reaped the benefit of that reward. They knew. They knew. We know. And we recognize it and we say, hey, can we talk about this? But no. When it comes down to it, we blame video games. We blame mental health and illness. We blame the guns. We blame politicians. We blame single individual public figures. Because, you know, it's just the belle du jour. The madness is going to continue. I can promise you, by the end of first 48-hour cycle from yesterday to today, it's not going to be talked about. They're going to forget about it, and they're not going to issue it until they get an update on some kind of court case, some kind of ruling that they're going to decide on that will either break day on this morning of Monday morning or tomorrow, by Tuesday. They're going to forget about it. It's going to go right down the downward spiral of memory hole. Same way all the other shootings have. Same way all the other violence has. Because at the end of the day, they don't care about the violence. They care about the terror. They care about the fear-mongering. They care about that metric. That's why I invented the word aggregationalist. They want to aggregate the outrage and monetize it. They want to monetize it because it's easier. It's just easier. It's easier to get you to be on their side and give them what they want if they can make you terrified of everyone around you. I don't want to live in that kind of world. I don't think anyone here in my audience wants to live in that kind of world. So, go out armed with this knowledge. Take heed of the fact that I share with myself and that I make it my job to tell you what's really good. I'm Carl, and I'll see you guys next time. Adios, my boys.